Hey, Izzy here. Well, I searched Amazon, eBay, even our own customer service questions, and I found the most asked questions about the Altura Photo A958X flash for Canon. Basically, I'm going to share these answers with you now. The way we're going to do it is this video is going to be segmented in two parts: beginner questions and questions by advanced users. As always, if this video helps you, remember to hit me up with a like button underneath, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for future frequently asked questions, tutorials, and unboxings. And whenever in Miami, come say hello at Digital Goja showrooms. Let's get started with the most asked question about the Altura Photo APC 958X flash for beginners. Can I shoot with the flash while I'm recording video? No, remember, we're in a completely different mode in the camera. So now, let me activate my ADD, which is superb for video. Notice how I'm recording here. This flash is not going to fire off. I mean, I can do something. If I want to do special effects, I can take the flash off and press the pilot button and do something like this if I want to be, I don't know, creative and kind of give a weird effect. What are the different flash mode settings for my Altura APC 958X? Well, we first turn it on, it defaults to E-TTL. That's the most popular in today's imaging standard. Press it again, and for us old timers like myself, and I like to be in control, there's our full manual, and here's where I can actually change the power ratio from full power all the way down to 1/128th power. And then in this mode, you can also turn the control knob or the control wheel, and you can go from slave 1 to slave 2 mode, where it uses the optical slave and it's being powered or fired from a primary flash source, whether the built-in flash on your camera or another strobe. And this has two settings for TTL and for full manual use. Now, when we go back to mode again, we now switched over to the multi-mode, which is to create that stroboscopic effect. And this is where you can now choose at how many seconds you want how many flashes to fire off. Now, switching back to TTL, we now also have this mode, which is your high-speed sync. As you have it there, you can shoot all the way up to 1/8,000th of a second, so you can use this as a catch light or a fill light in a really bright environment. Very popular. And you have your rear curtain sync. In this mode, your flash now synchronizes with the closing of the shutter curtain at the slowest setting, at the second curtain mode, where that way you can create light streaks. And then, by holding down the zoom button, you now activate your wireless E-TTL mode. And this is where you can have the APC 958X work as a master control for E-TTL wireless or as a slave, whether you want to control it with an original OEM flash from Canon or another Altura Photo APC 958X. How do I do a factory reset on my APC 958X? Well, you went ahead and did it. You pressed a whole bunch of buttons. You have no idea what's going on, and you can't stop it from happening. Well, this is the easiest way to fix this. You're going to do a factory reset. Turn the unit off, depress and hold the select set button, and then turn it on. And notice all those icons pop up. There's your factory reset. It's back to just as if you took it out of the box. What Canon cameras can I use with the Altura Photo APC 958X? Pretty much anything that's out there that's digital. Here's a perfect example. This is about the oldest that I have in the Goja showroom. This is the Rebel T3i. It has E-TTL, so it'll work perfectly with it, including wireless. You can have an older model, it'll function also. Maybe the wireless TTL might not work. And now you stepped up to something that's much more current. Here's still the crop sensor, EOS 80D. Again, works fantastically with the APC version. How about full frame? Yes, absolutely. Here's EOS 6D. That will work perfectly fine with the APC 958X. And let's say you don't want full frame. You want to go to the new mirrorless revolution. Well, there you have it. Here's the new EOS M5. This is their newest version in the mirrorless design, and this also worked perfectly with the APC 958X. Can I shoot outdoors with my APC 958X? Absolutely. Remember, if you have it on E-TTL, you can even set your camera to the most automatic mode, which is the intelligent auto. That's the green A right there. So when you have it to that full auto mode, it's going to fire, and it's going to control the flash and tell it how much output to work. So don't worry, you can definitely work with it outdoors on a bright sunny day and fill in for any shadows or harsh contrast. Let's get started with the most asked questions about the Altura Photo APC 958X flash for advanced users. What's the difference between my recycle time when I shoot on TTL and on manual? Very simple. It all depends on how far you are from the subject matter and how you set your manual exposure. So notice, I now have it set on E-TTL, and I'm shooting at 1/125th of a second at f7. Let's change that to f6.3 at 200 ISO. So there we have it. When I fire, look at how quick this recycles, because I'm relatively close to my subject matter. So it's telling the flash, hey, you need to cut down the power ratio. But I can do the same thing if I go into manual. I can start out with 1:1, but notice what's going to happen at full power. This is going to really slow down my recycling. Bam. So now I have to wait for it to recycle again. Plus I blew my subject matter out of proportion. It's completely overexposed. So obviously what I need to do is I need to change my power ratio. So let's take it down to 1/16th power. Now notice how much faster my recycle time is, but I'm still blowing out my subject matter. So let's cut it back down again to 1/64 power. Much faster recycling time, and I'm not washing out my subject matter as much. So it all depends on your exposure and your flash output. Can I do high-speed sync off camera with the APC 958X from Altura Photo? Absolutely, but you have to set it up. First of all, you got to press your control dial here so you activate your high-speed sync. Next, we have to set it up so that one of the flashes and the one that's on the camera has to be set to the master, and you have to have a second flash which will be your slave. So first let's do this one, which is on the camera. Hold down the zoom button and you're going to move it to master on, and there you have it. Now this guy is your master control flash. Now I'm going to show you how to do it with a secondary flash. All right, so as you can see, I already have it set up on my light stand. This is my secondary flash. This is another Altura APC 958. Have it set to high-speed sync, but now we're going to hold down the zoom button, and now I'm going to set this one to slave mode. So now when I fire with my primary one, this guy's going to fire off, and again it's going to shoot at high-speed sync, and we'll show you some images that we did with it. How do I set up my APC 958X for stroboscopic effect? Well, first we have to set up the camera. Now remember, there is a guide in your instruction manual, and you can also download one online. This is just a starting point. This is not the holy grail. You want to set it up and do test shots. I'm going to do a 2-second exposure at f13 with ISO 100 in lovely digital Goja studios here. Now we're going to go to the flash itself. So we need to switch it over to multi. That's your stroboscopic mode. And you're going to hit the selector button and set up the hertz, which we're going to go with 5 hertz here. And then how many strobes to be able to work in the background that we have set up. We're going to start with an approximate of 16. And then we're going to set the power ratio. I'm going to, at this distance, work at 1/16th power. And again, this is a guideline. This is not the way it's going to work every single time. You want to experiment and try it out. But this at least gives you a guideline to start out. Be assertive with your testing. Make sure you try it out multiple times, because it's going to happen depending on how fast your subject is moving. All that goes into variance and the amount of light source. So when I depress the shutter now for 2 seconds, it's going to shoot the multiple strobes. So how do I set my first curtain and rear curtain sync? Very simply. Of course you can do it on the flash, but you really have to do it on the camera. This is the Rebel T6S. You're going to go into the menu, and you want to go into your first folder and scroll down to flash control. Then scroll down to external flash function setting. Now you can do this of course on manual or TTL, just not on multi. You're comfortable with E-TTL, of course, by all means set it there. Here is your first curtain sync, which is for your normal shooting. But notice when I scroll over to the right, there is your second curtain sync. And it actually activates the icon on your Altura flash. But guess what? This is the one you're going to use so you can create those light trails and be really creative with your flash photography. You just have to remember to set it up. And then of course you would pick a slower shutter speed, and there you go. Is my high speed sync limited to the highest shutter speed of the camera? Well, yeah, technically it is, because if your camera, perfect example, have a T6S, maxes out at 1/4000th of a second, that's the fastest sync that I can do with the Altura APC 958 flash. But if I now step up to the 7D Mark II, I can now go to a faster speed. And if I get a Sony A7R II, that also has a faster sync. So it really is dependent on your camera, but not on the flash. If you use the flash on another camera and it has a higher speed sync, it'll work with that one perfectly. Why does my subject come out blurry when I'm working with rear curtain sync? Well, what you have to keep an eye out is your shutter speed. So if you have it, you have to set it up to rear curtain sync. Notice, if it's shooting too slow, like at 1/60th of a second on program, you might need to switch out of program, maybe go to time value and pick a faster shutter speed depending on your subject matter, like 1/125th of a second. That should help you from your subject blurring out. All right, so now we're going to show you how to work with diffusion and the Altura Photo APC 958X. First, we're going to do some shots, and then we're going to take pictures. No, really. We're going to take a picture without diffusion, then the other 4 ways to diffuse it. All right, take it away, Adam. No diffusion. Now we're going to activate the built-in diffusion panel that is in the actual flash. Now we're going to extend the reflector card so that now you can bounce the flash and give you even more diffusion. Now we're going to put on the included diffusion cup. Remember, that's in the bottom of your storage area with your flash. We're now going to use a 6x7 miniature softbox diffusion panel. Those are available, many of them on the market. This one happens to be the very popular one from Altura. And that just Velcros on, very easy to work with, and it gives you nice soft diffusion. It's great for groups and also to be able to get that non-contrasty light. And there you have it. Can I use an external power supply for my Altura Photo 958X flash? Absolutely, and it's very simple. Notice in the front section here, we have this little electrical looking Thunderbolt. Pull that open and there's the port for a Canon connection for an external power supply. Of course, you don't have to buy the original Canon if you choose not to. You can get the Altura version. It does the same thing. It allows you to work with 8 AA batteries inside the battery pack. And of course, you always need 4 inside your flash so you can make the circuitry connection. So this is the way you plug it in. You line up the ports, push in gently, snaps in place, turn on your strobe, and now you have the capability of firing continuous bursts. So this allows you to recycle faster, and it also gives you considerably more flash power when it comes to being able to work with an external power supply. Now, what's the difference between manual setting on the flash and TTL? Well, first of all, if you set it to TTL, you can literally set the camera on full automatic and everything is handled by the camera and the flash. There's nothing else involved. But remember, on TTL mode, the camera is synchronizing with the flash. It's going to have it fire a pre-flash, where from that and the ambient light, it's going to give the information to the camera to make the distinction of how much power output to use with the flash. Depending on the subject that you're photographing, it can be fooled. Now, some of us old timers are used to manual, because in manual, I can now go ahead and set the power output, and that's what it's going to do every single time. So that way, if I see that the correct exposure is there, I can guarantee that that's what I want to use as my power output for that particular subject matter. But you, as a photographer, have to make the decision. Do you want to work a little bit harder and guarantee the exposure the way you want by using full manual? Or do you want to go into TTL? And again, remember, you can change certain aspects of TTL. You don't have to use full automatic on your camera. You can set aperture priority and let the camera compensate otherwise, or even control the depth of field by setting your f-stop. But there you have it. You do have 2 ways, manual and TTL, to work with the APC 958X. All right, so you're tired of TTL, you want to go full manual. Well, the first thing you want to do with your APC 958 is you want to switch the mode to manual. Back in the day when I was shooting professionally, we walked around with these guys. Yep, this is called a light meter. This one happens to be an ambient and a flash meter. That means that you will use this on your subject, fire your flash, and it will give you a reading depending on the ISO you were working with, what your f-stop was, and you had the correct exposure. Now, let's say you don't want to invest in one of these, or you don't own one. Well, the way you're going to have to do it is, now you're going to have to do trial and error. Of course, your camera is on manual. I have my shutter speed, my ISO, and my f-stop set up. I approximated the flash at 128th power. I'm going to zoom back and forth depending on how my crop is going to be for the subject matter. Then I'm going to fire off, and it gives me the exposure. If you notice that it's underexposed like that one was, well, guess what? Now you're going to have to go back in here and select more light. So let's go with 1/64th power, fire it again, and now you notice you have more light. And if that's suitable for your exposure, there you have it. But these are the 2 ways that you can shoot with the 958X on manual. How do I disengage the auto off on my Altura Photo APC 958X? Second part of that question was, why does it do it? Well, it does it because it wants to guarantee to save battery life. So after a certain period of time, it's going to go idle and then shut off to save battery life. But you can change it in your custom function button. So you're going to depress the button, and notice how that activates custom function. And you're going to go to custom function 1. So you're going to turn the command dial to go to 1. Now, you press the select button, and now you have to activate whether you want the auto off on, which happens to be 0, or off, which is 1. So once you do that, you press the set button, and then when you go back to your normal modes, notice that your custom function light is activated. That means that you change the setting, and it's now programmed so that the flash will not go into idle and shut off automatically on you. so now we're going to see how to set our Altura Photo APC 958X for Canon for manual exposure, both on the camera and on the flash. First, you want to make sure you take your camera off of automatic and switch it to M for manual. Then I'm going to set the ISO. I'm going to set it to 320 because that's a good base point to work in ambient light. And then I'm going to set my shutter speed at 1/25 of a second and an aperture of about 5.6. So that I have that set, I'm going to take a picture and look at the base image that I get with this exposure, so I have something to base my exposure on when I use my flash. So now I take this shot and I look at the exposure, and now I'm going to set up my APC 958X. You're going to turn it on and you're going to remove it from the E-TTL mode to manual, and I'm going to set my power ratio. I'm going to start out with 1:1, which is full power, and I'll take an exposure at the same distance at the same subject at full power. And look at the exposure. It seems drastically overexposed, so I will now change my power ratio. I'm going to cut it down to 132 power. And do the same exact distance, and now I notice that I have a correctly exposed shot. Again, you need to do a couple of test shots till you get it properly exposed. All right, so now we're going to show you how to take night portraits with the Altura Photo APC 958X in your night studio. Take it away, Adam. Now he's working on full TTL, so this way it becomes easier for you to control your camera and the strobe. We're also going to use different forms of diffusion so you can see how you can control the contrast with your portraiture. Now we're going to add an external diffusion panel. This is basically a soft box. It's a 6x7 size. It's put out also by Altura. Very easy to work with because it has a Velcro exterior, so it attaches to any size flash. So it works great with the APC 958X. Now we're going to show you the settings that Adam put in our night studio on how to work your APC 958X for night photography. First, you're going to set your camera on manual. You're going to set your shutter speed to 1/60th of a second so we have a nice flash duration. We're going to shoot at f4.5 and our ISO is set to 400. And of course, we're going to turn on our APC 958X and leave it on TTL. That way you still have control. We're going to zoom to 35 millimeter. And now you have more control over your exposure. Well, I hope you liked the video on the Altura Photo APC 958X. And if you did, remember to share it with fellow videographers and photographers and hit me up with a like button. If you have any questions, please place them in the comment question below. Happy shooting.